Hi, this is Jim Thomason of Bassett Software, and today I'm going to talk to you about using the ledger screen. Everything that we've worked on so far has concentrated on the future, creating these payment plans and getting out of debt effectively. But Debtinator is also a usable tool, a very functional tool to keep track of where you've been in the past. You don't need to generate these payment plans and then export them out to some other budgeting software. You can do it all in-house. And it has one advantage at a minimum. We'll go back to our scenario screen and we'll create a scenario for our highest interest plan. As you see, my cash is no longer in effect, so it has to save the whole thing. But you may have noticed that something popped up down here, save as payment plan. What that allows us to do is say, okay, this is the scenario that I want to keep. This is I think the way to go. So I want to record that. So we'll save that here, and that's going to show up on our ledger screen for us. You notice our progress bar goes along, and once that's done, we'll have a very convenient place to keep track of these things in the future. So we can finally get to our ledger screen. The ledger is a pretty advanced, involved screen. There's a lot going on here, so we're just going to tackle things one at a time. First thing we're going to look at is what we already saw on the income tutorial. In the upper left here is where we establish budgets. This lists the various bank accounts we have, the funds that are in them, any budgets we've established, as well as any credit cards we may have. Now, each bank account budget can also have a cap to the number of funds. Now, right now, all of these are uncapped, meaning we can just funnel as much money into those budgets as we'd like. But we may want to cap them. For example, you could set up a budget. We'll do that here for groceries. And we'll even go back to our income screen and we'll set up and say that we're going to set aside $150 a week for groceries, or every 2 weeks for groceries. So we can do that, but we can deal with that $150 in two different ways. We can just say, well, every 2 weeks I'm going to spend $150. But what happens if you spend $125 one week? Well, if you don't have a cap on the budget, it's unlimited now, then the next time that you fund it, you'll deposit another $150 and you'll end up with $175. Then maybe you'll spend only $150 then. Well, then there's another $25 and you're still at $175. And then maybe you only spend $100. Well, then that's an extra $50 that goes in and you're up to $225 and so on. So you keep funneling more money into the groceries budget, which maybe you want to do. Maybe it's nice to have the little extra buffer. Or maybe you want to take a use it or lose it attitude. At that point, you can cap the budget. You can say, okay, it has a maximum of $150. And what that tells you is that, you put that $150 in there every 2 weeks, and if you spend it in that time, great. And if you don't spend it, oh well. Then, if you've still got $25 left, then the next time the funding comes around, it's only going to put $125 in instead. And then what that does for you is that leaves you an extra $25 in your debts and expenses budget to handle your debts. That's $25 less than you're spending on groceries because you came in under budget, so that's more money you can send to your debts. Now, as things happen, you can record them as transactions. These are your day-to-day spending and what you do with things. So we don't have much in our account right now. But fortunately, down at the bottom here, we have our payment plan. This is what we saved on the scenario screen a minute ago. This is the same set of scenario information for everything going forward for the next 4 years until we're out of debt. Now, you'll notice that a couple of these things here are highlighted in green. That means that we can actually pay them right now. The MasterCard bill is only $25, and we have that in debts and expenses, so we can actually apply that, and you can see it moves up to the top here. It's highlighted in magenta as a note that says, hey, this is something that you recently applied. We're going to fudge it a little bit and say, well, okay, the payday is the 4th, and that's close enough, so we've actually already been paid. So we'll hit this button, and that brings in several events, which you can see is a deposit of $1,000. And it also transferred $100 over to our Christmas savings, $25 to our emergency expenses, and then we have our $25 payment to MasterCard. The recently added groceries budget isn't added here because we added that into our income after we generated the payment plan. So no funding was set aside for it. We would need to go back to the scenario screen and rerun the scenario and resave the payment plan, and then those items would be on there. But since we don't want to do that right now, we can just add a new transaction ourselves, funding groceries, and then you'll need to fill in a couple of bits of information. I'm going to fill them in on the transaction details over here on the right. Um, you fill in the date, the transaction, the check number, if appropriate. You can mark off whether it's cleared the bank or not. You can tell which event it was. So, is it a debt, is it an expense, is it income, and so on. It's nothing in this case, it's just a manual transfer. The funding source where the money's coming from, it's coming out of debts and expenses, and then set the action. The action varies depending upon whether it's a bank account or a credit card. Bank accounts you can deposit money